Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're totally tearing down a standard convention in gaming, the illusion of choice. You know the drill, right? You're forced to make some monumental decision to save or destroy the world, but all that really happens is the dialogue box hands you a blue sword instead of a red one. Then the NPC immediately forgets the whole ordeal and asks you to go collect 10 bear pelts. Sound familiar? Well, today we're looking at one specific quest in the Immortal Realm shard that shatters that illusion entirely. Okay, let's dive right into this. I really want you to imagine a virtual world where your decisions have heavy, irreversible consequences. A world where you don't just get some slightly different flavor text, but where the actual makeup of a city fundamentally changes based on who you decide to side with. So, what happens when an MMO quest permanently alters your world? To figure that out, we're going to thoroughly examine the mechanics and the story behind a quest called the Rivalry. Section 1. The Craftsman Feud. A deceptive setup. So picture this. We begin in a bustling city, walking right into what feels like a super standard, localized human drama. On one side of the street, we've got blacksmith Aldous. He is absolutely fuming because a custom hammerhead he was forging for the mayor has vanished, and he is pointing the finger straight at carpenter Edric. Now, head to the other side of town, and Edric is equally furious. He claims Aldous stole his premium oak planks. It is your classic he said scenario. Now, as a player, you're looking at this and probably thinking, okay, this is just a basic flavor-driven MMO dispute over some missing inventory. Fetch the items, get a little gold, move on to the next town, right? Well, no, you'd be totally wrong. Moving on to Section 2, the investigation pivot, uncovering the lie. Because when you actually start digging, this seemingly simple dispute morphs into a deeply deceptive mystery. Let's trace the actual gameplay steps here. You start off by talking to Aldous, then you go get Edric's side of the story. Like we said, standard stuff. Step 3, you head out to recover the missing items. Actually, scraps that, you try to recover them. Because here's where the thread starts to pull. You realize the items just aren't where either craftsman claimed they were stolen from. It's a physical problem you discover in the environment. And that realization leads you to step 4, where the entire narrative pivots. You find a ledger, hidden in an accounting house, belonging to a local merchant. And here is the exact jaw-dropping realization you uncover. The ledger documents the framing up of both craftsmen for the same commission Vetch is trying to claim for himself. Yep, the merchant, Dorian Vetch, has been playing them both like a fiddle. These squabbling NPCs are actually victims of a highly calculated frame job. Suddenly, you're not an errand runner anymore, you are holding hard evidence of a crime. It completely reframes your mission and your entire understanding of the town's dynamics. Which brings us to Section 3, 3 permanent choices, the weight of the ledger. So holding this evidence basically forces you into a one-shot decision with incredibly heavy stakes. And there are 3 distinct paths you can take. Option 1 is kind of the peacekeeper path. You expose Dorian Vetch, Aldous and Edric reconcile, the feud ends, Vetch faces justice, and you get rewarded with a peacekeeper's medallion. Crucially, both craftsmen stay in town. But look at options 2 and 3. If you just hand the ledger to Aldous, he uses it as leverage to permanently exile Edric from the city, and you get Aldous' forged blade. Hand it to Edric instead. Aldous is the one who gets exiled, and you get Edric's finishing mallet. This is wild, you guys. You are literally erasing an NPC from the town's ecosystem. They are just gone. Plus, the weapon you receive carries what the game calls provenance text. That means anyone inspecting your character's gear can read exactly which choice you made. You're quite literally wearing your consequences for the rest of the server to see. Section 4, World State Consequences. Let's look at the mechanics of choice. Let's pull the camera back for a second and peek at the actual code running beneath the surface. So, the crucial point is how Immortal Realm enforces this permanence. They use a system called account-level persistence. The code tags your entire user account with your final decision. You can't just drop the quest and try again. You can't even just roll a new character on the same account to undo your actions. The lock is absolutely ironclad, and it's intentional. The developers really want the weight of that choice to matter, ensuring the world state for your account reflects exactly the bed you made. But there's a really fascinating nuance to this so-called deletion. If you choose to exile someone, it isn't just a cold script where the character is thrown into the void forever. No, it triggers a secondary system called the Rivalry Aftermath. After a specific real-world cooldown period of a few days, the craftsman you drove out of town will actually pop back up in a completely different location, near New Haven, and they'll come up to you, practically begging for permission to come back. So while your initial choice fundamentally shatters the original dynamic of the town, it's actually just opening the door to a much longer, far more complex narrative arc. And this brilliantly illustrates the pacing of this whole experience. 45 to 90. That's the number of minutes this entire quest takes, from the very first conversation to that final permanent choice. It's not some multi-week grind. It is incredibly dense. It's designed to be played in a single, sustained sitting with absolutely zero filler. Every single step carries weight, so by the time that final choice menu pops up, you've investigated just enough to really feel the gravity of what you're about to do. All right, Section 5, the Shards narrative layer. Let's see where this fits. Let's zoom out and see how this builds into the overall design of the server. Immortal Realm relies on a few different narrative anchors to keep players hooked. You've got the Ashen-packed questline, right? That's your massive, multi-chapter epic that takes months to beat and get super deep into the lore. Then there's the Britannia Murders, which plays out way more like a slow, episodic, methodical investigation. And on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum is the Frog Collection. Because, hey, every MMO needs a low-stakes excuse to wander around looking at the dirt. But the Rivalry? It perfectly fills a very specific void, the dense evening story slot. It's practically custom-built for that night when you just want to sit down for an hour and have a deeply impactful, self-contained story actually happen to you. Ultimately, it all boils down to one uncompromising core design philosophy. Choices should mark the world. The devs behind Immortal Realm actively reject the standard MMO formula. They don't want branching paths that just spit out different reward tooltips while leaving the world identical. And they definitely don't want quest content that lives solely in your personal roleplay headcanon where nobody else can see it. Here, your choices leave physical marks. NPCs disappear, the local economy visually shifts, and your character publicly wears the proof of their actions right on their weapon. It is such a bold, refreshing approach to game design. So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. When you log in, put in the legwork, and finally find that ledger hidden in Dorian Vetch's counting house, the power to fundamentally reshape a town is entirely in your hands, knowing that there are absolutely no redos, no safety nets, and no turning back. Which craftsman will you exile? Or will you keep the peace? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped you appreciate the incredible mechanics behind the Rivalry, and I'll catch you on the next one.